we're going to make our MA chassis box stock cars faster. Right after my build of the City Circuit Special, I mentioned that I would decorate it slightly differently, and we'll talk about that. And I also will be talking about how to improve the speed of the car, like what things to look for to try to improve the speed of your car. So let's take a look at that video. As you see here, I added some silver trim to the City Circuit Special car. The typical car looks like this with all the decals. I decided to omit a lot of the decals and then add this silver trim instead to make it a little bit different. Pretty cool. And let's take a look at the inside. You can see here very, very smooth. Very, very smooth. This is not as smooth as the rear ones. The front has a little bit of a wobble. As you see, no sponges behind these contacts here, because if you were to add sponges behind the contacts, it would be very hard to get the batteries inserted into this car. So MA chassis have that kind of like detriment about them. There's a little bit of a grind in this. And what I see here is, if you take a look at this, there's a little space between the purple pinion and the green counter gear. Whereas over here, there's like no space. And I think that's causing this little grinding sound that's here. So let's take a look at this and see if we can fix this. Okay, we might need to just push this in a little bit more. There we go. Heard that click. Now the shaft of the motor is flush up against the end of the pinion gear, as you see here. Now we can reinsert this, and hopefully we'll get a performance boost. Sounds a bit more smooth. There's not as much space there as there, so it might still be that, it might be that the pinion's being pushed up, like basically loosening on its own. You might need to replace the purple pinion. Let's take a look. No, it's flush against there. That's flush too. Let's see. Okay. Let's just add a little bit of this. Some secret sauce. With a little bit of this. You all know that we shouldn't just be using the yellow oil, right? You should also dilute it with a little bit of your regular oil too much of the yellow oil, and that's going to like wreck your motor after a while. It's not good for it. A lot of you might think that, oh yeah, I'll get the fastest speed possible using just the yellow oil, but it's just going to kill your motor, prematurely kill your motor. So you don't want to do that. You want to save your motor. Because motors, even though they're not that expensive, it all adds up, and all the cost of things adds up over time. That sounds better. Now we'll charge up the batteries, and then we'll give another speed test and see what happens. We'll also oil right here. Right where the exposed shaft is, from the chassis to the wheel itself, and also on the other side here. Good. And just lube up the holes where the shafts are. So I took care not to permanently attach this onto here, because I just want to make sure that I could remove this in case I just want to race it like this, with just this part of the cowl. If I want to add more weight to the rear, then I would put this in place, insert this into the two holes right here. Okay, and they are charged up. So there we go, we got 1 extra kilometer per hour just by fixing the pinion gear on the motor itself. And there are other things that we can do over the course of time to get this to be a little bit faster. So typically my MA chassis cars are at least 26 kilometers per hour. Sometimes they are 27. And yeah, that's a very fast car. You typically don't need that fast of a car to be racing in a typical Mini 4-wheel drive event. If you have anything greater than 24, 25, then you're looking at Course Out City, basically. So you don't necessarily want to be the fastest car. You want to be stable and fast at the same time. So very, very cool. So yeah, and this is a double shaft pro motor also, so it's going to be fast and torquey anyway. So pretty darn cool. And so over the course of time, while that little bit of yellow oil right there, along with the clear oil, it's going to basically break in the motor even more, and it'll get even faster than what you saw there, the 25 kilometers per hour. So you basically can tell by the sound of the gears. If your gears are crunching, you probably need to reposition the pinion gear, or something else is awry in there. It could be the counter gear, it could be the pink gears, and you need to readjust so that you get a smooth sounding machine. So something that hums rather than crunches. So there's a little bit of shake and wobble right here, and that's normal. So some people might be fearful that this is a little too wobbly. Usually one set of wheels is a little bit more wobbly than the other, and that's just how it is. So you have to basically use something like this, a wheel press, to make sure that everything is aligned properly. So if you don't use a wheel press and you just do things by hand, then you're not getting that precision that you need, because both of these wheels should be in parallel. If they're not in parallel, if they're slightly off, then you'll get the wobble effect, and you don't want to get the wobble effect. Also, make sure that the tires are basically aligned properly as well, otherwise you'll get the wobble effect. So here we gently push in, we shake it like this, make sure that you can have a little bit of movement, and then we release. And on the other side we do the same thing. Hold it in place, press it, shake it, make sure there's a little bit of space, and then release. And then you have perfect parallel wheels. We also want to make sure that these rollers spin freely. Look at that. That's beautiful. This one you can actually hear it, so there's a little bit of like, I can call it grinding, but it doesn't spin as freely as this one. This one spins a lot when I spin it. This one, it also spins a lot, but you can hear that there's a little bit of friction going on, so you can oil it if you'd like. Also, the rear, you want to make sure. And when you're testing these, you want to test in the direction that they will roll, right? So when this moves along a track, it's going to turn like this. So that's why you want to test it like this. Same thing with these on the rear. You want to test it like this. If you tested it the other way, that's not a realistic way of testing your rollers. You want to test in the forward motion on all the rollers. So there, let's do the top. There's a little bit of friction going on there. The bottom is nice. The bottom is smooth. Here, the top. relatively smooth. And the bottom kind of is terrible, but we'll have to oil the bottom one. So to oil, you simply, there's two parts, right? So there's between the washer and the roller, so we drape a little bit of oil there. And also in the top part, you want to get right in between where the roller and the top part of the screw is. So you want to drop a little bit of drop right there, and then we just test it right there, and now we have a nice smooth sound, right? It still doesn't spin as freely as I'd like, but it's better than it was before. So, oh, there we go. Nice. So here, let's see if we can just oil it a little bit. So here, between the washer and the roller, and then the top part here, yes. You don't want to over oil, right? Because, there we go, nice, nice, nice. You don't want to over oil because over oiling can, like this oil will eventually turn gloopy over time when dust from the track basically attaches itself to the oil. So you want to wipe off the excess oil as best you can so that you get enough oil on there, but not too much. And yeah, and you go about doing that with all the rollers that need lubricating. Other things to check for, you want to check for cracks in your chassis, right? So if there are cracks in your chassis, then this is not going to be parallel to the ground, to the track. Check the back also, make sure there's no cracks. So you might think that, oh, MA chassis are very sturdy, I don't have to check those things, especially with this brake that also acts as a strut brace, and nothing could be further from the truth. A lot of these MA chassis can crack, and I'm not going to say they crack easily, but they can crack. So you want to make sure that nothing on your chassis is cracked or bent. A bent or cracked chassis means that your car will not be as stable as it should be. You also want to make sure that when you look at the car from underneath and you place it on the metal plate, when you're looking at it, you want to make sure that all four wheels hit this metal plate at the exact same time, right? So you don't want a situation where just three of the wheels are pressing against the metal plate and one wheel is kind of like lifted slightly off the ground. Just even a little bit, a minute amount off the ground on one of the wheels is enough to throw the balance of this car off. That means, like, imagine, if you will, a large car, like a full-size regular car, and one of the wheels was slightly off. That throws the balance off on that vehicle, especially if you're driving at a very high speed. And we are talking about like little cars moving at high speeds here. So the most minute amount of space between one of the tires, one of the wheels, and the bottom, the floor of the track could spell tragedy for your car. So you want to make sure that all four wheels touch the metal plate. You also want to make sure that these front rollers are angled downward, right? You want to have a little bit of downthrust on the front rollers. So you might find that right out of the box, if you build your car, no matter how well you build it, you're not going to get that downthrust because for whatever reason, chassis variations might mean that you're not going to get rollers on both sides that will point in a downthrust kind of way, and that's just how it is. That's just manufacturing defects. Here on the rear, we want these rollers to be more or less parallel to the ground. This one's not quite there on the top. The bottom one kind of is, but it could be better. So that's just manufacturing defects, and hopefully they won't affect this car too much. You also want to make sure that the cowl attaches to the chassis properly, and that there's no way that this can pop off from the front, and so you would need to secure it with your body catch. And yeah, that's how it goes right there. Some people optionally remove the brake part here, and removing the brake part will enable your car to go faster around the track, but it also sets you up for disaster, especially if you are negotiating certain inclines and certain parts of the track that may require a brake to slow the car down a little bit. So some people like to chance it. They set their battery voltages just right so that the car can stay on the track and still move blindingly fast. And so what you would do if you were to try to set yourself up for a brakeless car is to make sure that you don't have everything set at like max voltage. You want to lower the voltage just enough. You want to play test your car just enough in your playtesting experiments that having a lower voltage will keep the car stable and on the track. So there you have it, some tips on improving the speed of your MA chassis box stock cars. If you like this video, please slam the like button. Subscribe to my channel. You'll see more videos just like this one. Until next time, everybody, see you. Bye.